Now for our topic. Who or what is your inspiration?
Rhett and Link.
Rhett and Link is your inspiration. Right away, right out of the gate, Rhett and Link. Well, what makes them your inspiration?
Well, they are very funny.
Mm-hmm.
And they talk about toilet.
They talk about toilets. The last episode, they talk about toilets. Now, let's explain who Rhett and Link is first. Rhett and Link are a comedy duo about 10 years ago or so. They began making skits, mostly musically related. They got very popular, and then they started their own morning show called Good Mythical Morning. And we watched them, and that was an inspiration for us for our show. As a matter of fact, we stole from them. we basically, much of what we do is a complete imitation from them. So, but you know what they say about that? Imitation is the greatest compliment. So to that we say, you're welcome, Rhett and Link.
We stole from you.
We stole from you. Yeah. Scoot this way. My inspiration for our Saturday morning show, came about from our coffee, tea, and conversation time. We developed a time, myself and the kids, every day where we'd have coffee or tea. We'd sit together at the table, and I had a list of questions, topics, and we just talk, and it was great. If you have children, I encourage it. You don't have to make a show out of it. This show is mainly just the flowering of our relationship. Our relationship just kind of blossomed.
You're welcome, Rhett and Link. We stole from you.
It is funny. But what about your personal life? For instance, where you were going with your life. What is your life going to look like? My inspiration has been Paul, the apostle. I think I lifted that from my name, Timothy. And also, before getting married and having kids, I sought to live like him, nomadic, and preaching everywhere I went. I wasn't aspiring to be anything more than just an evangelist, preaching on the streets and trying to witness to people and bring people to the Lord. I didn't look and
You're welcome,
owning
Rhett and
anything.
Link. We stole from you.
But what about your personal inspiration for your life? Rhett and Link were an inspiration for this show, but what about for your life? Is there someone, maybe a saint, who inspires you?
Polycarp of Smyrna, Irenaeus of Lyon, and Justin Martyr. George the Slaying the Dragon.
George Slaying the Dragon. Hey, your cup. George Slaying the Dragon.
Slaying the Dragon. George Slaying the Dragon.
That leads us to our second question. Who or what should be your inspiration? Well, we came up with 3 sources of your inspiration. What should be your inspiration? The first one being Jesus. Jesus is to be your inspiration because he is God incarnate. He is the new Adam, and we are called to be like him. The second source of your inspiration, yes, is the saints. It's like what Paul said in 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 1, "Follow me as I follow Christ." They're called saints because they follow Christ so closely. And then the third source of inspiration, Baruch, is people who have done great things, like firefighters. Firefighters are a great source of inspiration.
Firefighters, policemen, knights, soldiers.
Yes, these.
Saints.
Well, saints are the second category, the second source of inspiration. But the third one are people like that. These people who hold these offices and who do well in them. That's the first category. That's the second category.
Polycarp of Smyrna, Irenaeus of Lyon, and Justin Martyr, St. George.
Absolutely. So that leads us to our third question. Who do you inspire? So we become inspired for the purposes of inspiring others. We do that through preaching the gospel, of course. But are you inspirational? What should that even look like? Well, we know what it looks like now through Christ, and a great example of that is on the cross. But are you inspirational? Are you inspirational?
Are you inspirational?
Well, I try to be. But that's kind of a trick question, and the reason why is because of sin and being in a fallen world. Christ told us that the world will hate us for his sake. So I'd like to point out four areas of Scripture that paints a picture that although we're living as this inspiration, as we're living like Christ and as much as we're able, and we're trying to inspire people through that Christ-likeness and through the preaching of the gospel, that the world is going to hate you. And this is what Jesus says in the Gospel of John. He's preparing his disciples for that very thing, for them, the soldiers are going to come and take him away. He's preparing them for what's going to happen, not just when they take him, but even after he ascends into heaven. In John chapter 15, verse 18 on, "If the world hates you, you know that it hated me before it hated you. If you were of the world would love his own. But because you are not of the world, but I have chosen you from out of the world, therefore the world hates you." So, we know that the world is going to hate those who love Christ. The world will love his own, but they'll hate those who love Christ. So the next one is in Matthew chapter 10. Matthew chapter 10, Jesus is preparing his disciples to go out and preach the gospel. And this is what he has to say to them. In chapter 10, he's preparing them for the hostilities they'll face. He says here in verse 34, "Think not that I've come to send peace on the earth. I came not to send peace, but a sword. For I have come out to set a man at variance against his father, and a daughter against her mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. And a man's foe shall be that of his own household. He that loves his father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. And he that loves his son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. And he that takes not his cross and that does not follow after me is not worthy of me. He that finds his life shall lose it, but he that loses his life for my sake shall find it." So Baruch, you know what that means? You are to love Christ more than me.
That's the one I said. I love Christ more than you.
Good. And I'm to love Christ more than you. Now this does not mean love Christ and not you. This means more than. This means if I have to choose between following Jesus and following you, I follow Jesus. If you have to choose between following Jesus and following me, you follow Jesus, not me. But your love should be so much like Christ that you would try to inspire me and you would encourage me through word to follow Christ. Or like Paul would say, follow me as I follow Christ. Right?
Yeah.
So.
But I can't follow the apostles more than Christ.
You're right. You're very right.
I need to follow Christ more than the apostles.
You're right. In Matthew chapter 24 to 25, which is the same as in the Gospels, basically the same as in the Gospels of Mark 13 and Luke 21, Jesus is teaching about the end times, and he tells us about how this time will come, where that hostility will even increase more. And it'll be just like in the days of Noah, where they were born with evil thoughts. And the evil was so great that he had to wipe it out with a flood. But we shouldn't be surprised, and even to the numbers that will hate Christ, and if you follow Christ, they'll hate you too. Jesus tells us in Matthew 7 in the Sermon on the Mount, he says, "Enter into the straight gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the path that lead to destruction, and many there will go therein. But because straight is the gate and narrow is the way which leads unto life, and few will find it. Few will truly follow Christ. Many will not. And he warns us too of those who will deceive, who will say, yes, I'm following Christ, but truly they're not. Right?
Yeah.
You're wrapped up in your picture, aren't you?
I'm always.
Always. Well, that is our topic. Who inspires you? And are you living inspirational? And are you ready to suffer the cost of following Christ and following his inspiration? What do we make of this? Two things. One, be imitators of Christ. Be worthy to be called a follower of Christ. Be inspirational in that sense. But at the same time, be prepared for rejection, because it will come if you are truly following Christ.